Good day, everyone. So it's almost the end of 2022, and obviously we need to keep score now with Genshin Impact. So, roughly towards the beginning of the year, I sort of put this game at about a 7 out of 10. Currently, I've dropped my own score to about a 5 out of 10, and we will be reviewing some of the good and the bad things in the game. So, let's start off with the good things. Well, obviously, we got a new region, absolutely fantastic story. I can't complain about Sumeru. I think the rainforest area is very lush. There's lots of vertical depth to it. There's so much you can explore, and of course, the desert is just so beautiful. It's really, I think they've done the desert like really, really well. It's one of the better deserts that I've seen a game has implemented. So, really, really appreciated that. And I think the big one for the year of 2022 is the release of Dendro. We've got new team comps, meta diversification, all the units being more relevant. So that has been one of the biggest wins for the game. Other things include like the great music. I mean, I've got Genshin on my playlist as well. It's very very good. The visuals always really nice to look at, and the auditory improvements like the critical hits and just some quality of life improvements as well. Certainly helped quite a bit. And I think the other thing that I want to sort of point out is that we didn't just get Dendro, but we got new characters and we had lots of horizontal expansion. So I can honestly say I think with probably the exception of Yelan, not a lot of vertical power creeping, but much more the quality of life stuff, like how you move around, like the sort of mobility creep is something we definitely did see. But certainly from my perspective, the way in which they're implementing characters and so on, I like the direction in which they're going. So for me, it's pretty, pretty good. When it comes to some of the bad things, well, this is where I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not one of those people that defends Hoyo on every single little thing because there's a lot that is wrong in the game. So yeah, the first big thing for me is obviously the combat events were pretty lackluster compared to what we've had. The last year, for instance, around this time, we had the Energy Amplify event. It was absolutely great, and very slowly, as the 2 point whatever series sort of started going away, we saw that since Sumeru's release, all the combat events were pretty much, except for Yakuniniki, were pretty much just a shallow of what they were. It didn't feel challenging. Like the latest, I think, Misty Dungeon event, even with like the trial characters, it took you less than 3 minutes, 4 minutes to do it. And it's just like, why? We have a 30-minute time limit. So are people really that bad at the game? It's been crazy. And of course, the big, most controversial thing this year is the fact that the developers have confirmed that no, there's no in-game in Genshin Impact, and no, we are not adding systems that will actually reward you for your progress. So they've focused quite a lot on the casual aspects. I actually would put one of the bad things here as being TCG. I do not like it. I think it's a horrible game mode. It's certainly something that standing as a separate standalone game would work, but that's a separate topic for another day. It just feels to me like with the inclusion of TCG that we've started to devolve from the core of the game, an action adventure role playing game where you fight characters, where you collect materials to become stronger, where the entire in game economy is about you improving with your characters and beating challenges. And the problem is, we've sort of progressed to this mini game simulator where Genshin tries to be everything. And this to me is frustrating because it starts to invalidate the account progression that you've had like for the last 2 years. What is the reward for getting new characters, for sticking out with the game? What's the reward for actually spending money in the game even? What do you really get with the combat itself, the core of the game, the combat, being watered down continuously, and you are told, hey, you've just pulled on Wanderer or on Raiden Shogun's banner. Yeah, that means nothing for TCG because there's no connection there. It's just like, what's the point even? I also feel like that's, yeah, that is the core issue for me. That's the big reason why I just sort of dropped Genshin score. Let me sort of put it in a bit of a different way. Genshin Impact certainly created the expectation that with the release of characters and their combat abilities and the amount of time that they've spent on in the live streams highlighting the combat abilities of, let's say, the character like the Wanderer, certainly gives you the impression that the strategic direction for the game is such that combat is going to be a thing, and yet this is where I think Hoyo's being truly deceptive. Their own strategic direction that they, as a CEO and a company and management or whatever, have sort of decided on is at odds with what they've sort of been putting out for us as players to sort of see in the game. And being out of touch like that with your audience and instead relying on survey data that a lot of players that play the game on and off give you really puts the game in a very, yeah, it just means the ship is steering in the wrong direction. I can just put it like that. I mean, we've discussed these topics ad nauseum in the past and so on. Another bad thing for me is that all the characters have definitely been left in the dust, and I don't just mean in terms of damage and balance, I also mean in terms of story content. We don't have, for instance, a Ganyu or a Kokomi Act 2. A lot of attention this year was given to Kazuha, almost like too much. There was the Iridori Festival, there was the Golden Archipelago. It was just too much Kazuha, and it's just like, well, you give all this attention to one character, and where are the rest? Because the more and more characters you add, this is called character creep, the more you're going to leave out the older ones, which is just, yeah, very, very sad in my opinion. I also think the game itself has been incredibly unambitious. So the new cosmetics, the deluxe cosmetics, the skins and so on, some of them look, the 4-star skins look fantastic because they're 4-star skins, but the 5-star one, I would have expected a lot more, especially compared to Honkai standards. And I also feel like the casual character content is just not, it's just lacking in this game. It's just missing. There's no, I'm randomly wandering in Leeway and here I see Ganyu busy fighting a mob and now I can, it's like a quick time event. You quickly join in and you beat the enemies and then afterwards she says some unique dialogue and the next day you find another character. It's like we don't have any of that. Like in Honkai Impact, for instance, in their equivalent of a teapot, characters actually interact with the furniture and the sort of gimmicks and stuff that you put on the field. They've got their own, they wander around and they'll even talk to each other. So there's lots of little Easter eggs you can find. That side, the teapot, the casual content, hasn't been well done. And unfortunately, if the core of your game, the combat's not being well done, the core of your the other core of your game, the character content's not being well done, and you just make a little mini game simulator that really has got nothing to do with those two, then yeah, unfortunately, that means Genshin's score is going to be knocked. So, sorry, that's just the reality of it. This game is not that good anymore. All right, so that's been my 2020 review, 2022 review. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll spare you the 8 minutes video and the ad revenue. So this is where I'll stop. Cheers.